Welcome to the Protagonist Pub. My name is Tammy, and this is where characters gather. Today, we're doing a brand new readathon that is 2 years old, but I just found out about it this month. So, that is Private Eye July. Here's the bingo board. I am so excited about this, y'all. So, there are 9 categories, and they're all fantastic. So, I'm going to do the easiest category first, which is Screen PI, which is to watch a movie or TV show featuring a private eye. This is really easy to do. There is the fabulous Rockford Files. There's the incredibly fabulous Magnum PI. There are multiple movies. One of which relates to a book that will appear on this list. So I'll talk about it then. But in addition to the screen PIs, I'm also going to mention the radio PIs. And this is where I fell in love with private investigators. And let me just clarify something here. This is talking about people who get paid to investigate, not your amateur sleuth, not your cozy librarian who stumbles across a dead body and solves the crime, or the friendly baker. These are professionals, licensed professionals who get paid by other people to go solve crimes. So, with that caveat, when I was a kid, back when dirt was young, our local AM radio station, every night at 9 o'clock, and I think they repeated it midnight or 1 a.m., for an hour, played old time radio. And we would all, be in bed no later than 9 o'clock so that we could listen in our own rooms. Or if we were driving back from, let's say, family, we would turn it on and listen. And that radio station didn't just cover, our local area. You could hear it states away. So it didn't really matter. If we were reasonably close to where we lived, we could hear it. And there was The Adventures of Philip Marlowe, Sam Spade, Nero Wolfe, Johnny Dollar. There are so many PIs that appear or that were heard over the radio, and you had to use your imagination to picture the scene and the characters and what was going on. It was fantastic. And to this day, when I can't sleep, that's what I turn on. There are channels now dedicated to it on YouTube. I'll link my favorite in the description box. There is also an app for your phone, which, I will turn one on, put it under my pillow so I don't disturb Dave, who didn't grow up with the same method of going to sleep. And if I cannot sleep, that will put me to sleep close to instantaneously. I cannot recommend them enough. So, the next one I want to talk about is Private Eye Tie-In. Read a movie or television tie-in or novelization featuring a private eye. So that is going to be one who is also so this is also screen PI and a radio PI and a book PI and classic American literature all at once. This is The Maltese Falcon by Dashiell Hammett. And the PI in question is Sam Spade. And believe it or not, I have never read this. Am I going to read it in July? I quite possibly Shall. It is a whopping 217 pages. I'm probably going to watch the movie for the first time too. I am so looking forward to this. I cannot even tell you. And I love the cover. I love when this was written. You know the time frame this is set. And this was first copyrighted in 1929. So, definitely early era. Definitely one of my favorites. Okay, the one square that I'm not going to touch because it doesn't interest me, the media format doesn't interest me. That is graphic PI, Private Eyes in the comics. Nathaniel Dusk, Jessica Jones, and many more. I don't know any of these characters. I recognize Jessica Jones as being a Marvel character, but that's about it. Have I ever read a graphic novel in my life? Nope. Do I foresee that happening? Again, nope. But that's okay. Because we don't all have to read the same thing. Okay. Next up is a modern PI featuring the varied and diverse private eyes that followed the classics from the 1970s onward. Let's just say that my trip to the library was very fruitful. I have others pulled up on Kindle too that I'm going to talk about here. But it was like a visit to old friends. I've read all of these authors. I've read all of these PIs. Have I read all of the books? I don't think so, but let's start with a easy classic. And that would be Robert B. Parker's Spencer. Spencer also fits for a television tie-in. It has been continued with the blessings of the estate once Parker died, and I have read those Spencer novels as well. They're pretty, they read fairly closely to, actual stuff written by Parker. Now, my library did not have every Spencer for Hire novel on the shelf. They had several of his other series on the shelf, but the one I always remember is Hugger Mugger. Do I know what number this is in the Spencer series? I do not. The Spencer series is vast and continuing. This one was published in 2000, and yep, this is the one in Georgia with horses, and I absolutely love this book. Is this writing style going to be for everyone? Nope. Are they fast, quick, relatable reads? They are. Do they feature strong male characters? They absolutely do. And the unique thing about Robert Parker is that he wrote 2 novels, one of which I will feature here with Raymond Chandler, who I will talk about here in a couple minutes. And one of those is Poodle Springs, which I have read, and the second one I have not read. But he actually wrote PI novels with one of the greats, and they are fantastic. I can highly recommend all of the Spencer books. I can recommend the other series he has. Actually, Robert Parker also has a Western. There's at least 1 or 2 of them in that he wrote. I'm trying to see if it's listed here. I don't see it. So, but I know he has a Western, and it's fantastic. And I picked another one off the shelf. This is a follow-up novel from the novel just before it, which is called Ceremony, in which Spencer saves a teenage prostitute. And this is just a novel with a cover that screams the era in which it was published, which was 1986. It's got a very small, cover, but you get the description. From that cover, April Kyle, the teenage prostitute Spencer saved in Ceremony, has made a potentially disastrous career change. She's left the expensive brothel run by high-class Madame Patricia Utley in favor of turning tricks for the man she loves, Robert Rambo, supposedly a student at Juilliard. It doesn't take Spencer long to determine that Rambo's interests include more than music and is stable more than April. Doll, I really need to know. I vaguely, and I mean vaguely, remember this one, but this Spencer novel is 35 chapters completed in 250 pages, and I loved every word of it without even remembering it greatly. I can tell you I loved every word of it, and I mean that sincerely. Okay. Next up, classic Private Eye, celebrating the traditional private eye in fiction from the 20s to the 60s. Now, I have these on my laptop. So, for some odd reason, my library does not have any Raymond Chandler in it. However, on Kindle, for $2.99, and that went up, you can buy the Raymond Chandler collection, Novels and Stories, 10 illustrated books, featuring The Long Goodbye, which is the first in the Philip Marlowe series. And all together, it's 933 pages for 10 books, which isn't bad at all. And these are, as you can tell from the cover, it is very evocative of the era in which it is set. But despite the women in lingerie and being scantily clad, this is in no sense even remotely close to what that same cover would mean today. Let me be very clear. These are clean. There is no shenanigans going on, nothing. They're absolutely fabulous. Okay, and the other one, also available on Kindle, this one for 99 cents, is Sam Spade by Dashiell Hammett. This is the complete crime collection, and it's also illustrated. It includes the Maltese Falcon, the complete short stories, and this one is a total of 386 pages. So a much smaller overall collection, but there weren't as many Sam Spade books. 2, 4, 6, 8. There's 8 in this collection. Very much looking forward to it. It's funny, there's only 8 in this collection, and I know the radio series has far more than 8 in its run, so there is that. Okay, and now the next one is a historic PI. Sherlock Holmes, Nick Carter, etc. Private Eyes from the pre-classic era. And I have a couple of these sitting on my shelf. Hang on. Okay, before we get to the historic, I forgot one for the classic Private Eye. That is Stardust by Robert Parker and Raymond Chandler, even though for some reason his name isn't on the cover. I am not sure why. This is actually, I will read you the performance. 50 Minutes is the title of a Hollywood-based TV series being shot on location in Boston. But to Spencer, it's trouble with a capital T. After signing on to protect its glamorous female star, Jill Joyce, from an escalating chain of anonymous harassments, he finds himself saddled with a lot more than he bargained for. First, there's Jill Joyce herself, a purely Tinseltown product of sexism, the star system, and identity confusion. She is a spoiled, arrogant substance abuser with little idea of who or what she really is. Since someone's been out to get her, her fear has transformed Jill into a nightmare version of her normally difficult self. Then there's the matter of the mischievous harassments, which are growing steadily more serious. And when they blossom into homicide, Spencer knows the hardest work and greatest risks are about to come, for the act is ended. But the murderer lingers on, watching and waiting to blow away the stardust and the star. Complex, unguessable, and wise in the twisting paths of human desire, Stardust is a 4-star noir suspense no Spencer fan will be able to resist. And that would include me. It's 256 pages. Despite its, heft, and it has been greatly loved by previous library patrons. I mean, the spine is slanted. I am probably, don't ask me when or how, dipping my nose into this. This was published in 1990. I am so looking forward to this. So, okay, back to historic PIs. I pulled 3 from my shelves. One very loosely fits the description of a private eye, but I'm going to argue it does, because while there may not be financial remuneration as we think of it today, there was a lot of money at stake, and that was the payoff. And that is The Woman in White by Wilkie Collins. As you know, I love this book. I think everybody should read it. Whether or not it's, a true PI book or not, it is a great mystery. There is a lot at stake in this book. It isn't a cozy, it isn't a thriller, it isn't romantic suspense, it isn't all the other subgenres. I really think you can fit this Victorian novel, which was, written in installments, as a very early form of private eye fiction. And the next one is a late Victorian, and that is The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes and Other Stories by Sir Conan Arthur Doyle. And, we are all familiar with Sherlock. Sherlock Holmes was also on the radio. There have been many television shows about Sherlock, from making Sherlock a female to making Sherlock, the modern day version of Sherlock a French female, Benedict Cumberbatch. But my favorite Sherlock is Sherlock on the radio, I think. I love Benedict Cumberbatch's, don't get me wrong, but that is a very unique modern day twist on Sherlock. And last up, loosely fits the category. That would be The Complete Father Brown Stories by G.K. Chesterton. In this case, it is Father Brown, a Catholic priest, solving crimes. He either loosely stumbles onto or happen around him. And while there is no financial remuneration to Father Brown, these are also not what I would classify as cozies or thrillers or anything else. This doesn't even qualify, in my opinion, as clergy solving a mystery, because they're much more complex than, and that don't always involve a dead body, mind you. Kindly cleric gets pulled into an investigation by happenstance. And these do not directly, other than the name of the protagonist, relate to the BBC miniseries. The BBC miniseries is a much different spin on the classic stories. So, okay. There are my choices for historic PI. Next box is fantastic PI, sci-fi or fantasy-based private eye, or one who investigates the supernatural. And I'm sure, to the surprise of no one, I have choices for this. Okay, first up would be the last book I finished before I put myself on YouTube. That is The Electric Detective by Peter Ward. It is available on Kindle Unlimited. And this is sci-fi. It was my A, introduction to the author, and B, my realization that detective fiction existed in the sci-fi world. And I have been thrilled with that ever since. And this is the book for me that started it all. It's available on Kindle Unlimited. Yeah, there were some formatting errors when I read it. I don't know if those have been cleaned up, but I don't care. I loved this book so much. And I will link to all of these books in the description box. This one is 352 pages. And this is about a droid that goes on a murder spree. And I seriously loved so much of what. I'll read you the description. When the CEO of Droidtech is murdered in seemingly impossible circumstances, the company commissions a state-of-the-art android named Penelope to help police solve the case. However, Penelope soon realizes her involvement in the investigation isn't as straightforward as people have been led to believe, and that other parties are using her position to further their own agenda. Hard-coded with a strict set of rules dictating how she can and cannot behave, Penelope finds herself in deadly game of cat and mouse with her own AI as she tries to bring the killer to justice. But as soon as she closes in on the truth, she discovers the case has more twists than she thought and more at stake than she ever could have imagined. I absolutely loved this book so much that I'm reading other things by him. So, okay, and the next choice, this is the second book in the series, but that is Full Moon by Jim Butcher. This is a Harry Dresden book. This is the second one. The first book is Stormfront. And these are on the fantastical side. They are fun. They are well written. They are just pure joy. Harry Dresden is a wizard in Chicago who does not get along with technology, to put it politely. And I'll read you the back of this one. Harry Dresden, wizard. Lost items found. Paranormal investigations. Consulting. Advice. Reasonable rates. No love potions. Endless purses. Or other entertainment. Business has been slow. Okay, business has been dead. Not even of the undead variety. You would think Chicago would have a little more action for the only professional wizard in the phone book. But lately, Harry Dresden hasn't been able to dredge up any kind of work, magical or mundane. But just when it looks like he can't afford his next meal, a murder comes along that requires his particular brand of supernatural expertise. A brutally mutilated corpse, strange looking paw prints, a full moon. Take 3 guesses, and the first 2 don't count. These are just fun. If you need a palate cleanser, pick up a Harry Dresden book. I cannot say enough good things about them. I really can't. I enjoy them so much. Okay. The next square on the bingo board is International PI. Private eyes based anywhere in the world other or besides the United States or England. I have 2 choices for this. I don't know what number this is in the series, but this is Murder in Bel Air by Cara Black. This is an Amy LeDuc. This is the 20-year 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. So this is the 19th book. And this was published in 2019. I love the cover of this book. Just look at that. It's gorgeous. These are all fun. These are set in Paris. And she has gone to work as the series opens. She has gone to work for her grandfather. And she has it just... They're wonderful, and they're a glimpse of French life, and I cannot say enough good things about them. And I love the fact that they always have a map in the front. So if you're unfamiliar with France, in particular Paris, you get a map so you can locate things that take place in the story. They're fantastic, and I highly recommend them. It would be unusual if your library didn't have a copy. This one I picked up from Better World Books. It's just under 300 pages. I know, shocking for me that I love a book under 300 pages, but I do love this one. Okay, I have one more international recommendation. I read nothing from this author. In fact, my library doesn't have a copy of it electronically, physically, anything. However, I can get it on loan from one of the libraries. So that is The Missing American by Kwai Cordy. Cordy. I'm probably saying that wrong. And this is the first book in the Emma DeGen investigation series. And it is 433 pages. And I will read you the description. When dreams of rising through the Accra police ranks, like her late father, crash around her, 26-year-old Emma Jan is unsure what will become of her career. Through a sympathetic former colleague, Emma gets an interview with a private detective agency that takes on the case of missing persons, theft, and infidelity. It's not the future she imagined, but it's her best option. Meanwhile, Gordon Tilson, a middle-aged widower in Washington, D.C., has found solace in an online community after his wife's passing. Through the support group, he's even met a young Ghanaian widow he's come to care about. When her sister gets into a car accident, he sends her thousands of dollars to cover the hospital bill, to the horror of his only son, Derek. Then Gordon decides to surprise his new love by paying her a visit, and disappears. Fearing for his father's life, Derek follows him across the world to Ghana, internet capital of the world, where he and Emma will find themselves deep in a world of Sakawa scams, fetish priests, and those willing to kill to protect their secrets. I think this sounds fascinating, and I am very, very intrigued. I know nothing about the author. I don't read a lot of fiction set in Africa. And I gotta tell you, this has me interested a lot. I'm not gonna lie. I'm definitely interested. Okay. Last square. Hometown PI. Whoa. I forgot some stuff in Modern PI. I'll cover that at the end. Hometown PI. Find and read a private eye story set in or near your hometown. Now, there is really none set in or near my hometown. And, depending on how you define near, I'm just going with the state of Texas. There you go. So, first up would be Big Red Tequila by Rick Riordan. Yes, that Rick Riordan. This one is 400 pages. It is the first book in the series. There are currently 7 books in the series. And I will read you the description. Everything in Texas is bigger, even murder. Jackson Tres Navarre and his enchilada-eating cat, Robert Johnson, pull into San Antonio and find nothing waiting but trouble. 10 years ago, Navarre left town and the memory of his father's murder behind him. Now he's back, looking for answers. Yet, the more Tres digs, trying to put his suspicions to rest, the fresher the decade-old crime looks. Mafia connections, construction site payoffs, and slick politicians' games all conspire to ruin his homecoming. It's obvious Trey has stirred up a hornet's nest of trouble. He gets attacked, shot at, run over by a big blue thunderbird. And his old girlfriend, the one he wants back, is missing. Trey has to rescue the woman, nail his father's murderer, and get the hell out of Dodge before mob-style Texas justice catches up to him. The chances of staying alive looked better for the defenders of the Alamo. Yeah, I need to read this series. I really do. Okay. And this is Dead on the Island by Bill Kreider. This is the first book in the Truman Smith murder series. It's 227 pages. And it was nominated for the Shamus Award for Best First Private Eye Novel. P.I. Truman Smith has become a loner after failing to find his sister Jan during a recent search of Galveston Island. He jogs on the seawall, plays with his cat, and reads lots of Faulkner books. He's pulled from his self-imposed retirement when his old high school football buddy Dino asks him to find a young girl named Sharon. As True begins his investigation, dead bodies begin to appear and True himself is attacked. His search for Sharon takes him to all sorts of interesting places on and near the island. Bill Kreider spins a good mystery tale in a wonderful setting with interesting characters and enough plot twists to keep readers guessing until the last few chapters. Yeah. I, again, am very interested. Okay, let's see if that is it for my laptop. It is. I do have one more book for the local setting, and I got it from the library. This would also fit under modern era and women. I forgot 2 very important ones I'm going to talk about here in a minute. But this is Samantha Jane Allen, Paved Dirt Road. This is the first in the series. It won the Tony Hillerman Prize. And it's very sad I couldn't put Tony Hillerman in this category. This was published in 2022. And again, just under 300 pages. I have read nothing from this author, but I am very interested. Annie McIntyre has a love-hate relationship with Garnett, Texas. Recently graduated from college and home waitressing, lacking not in ambition, but certainly in direction, Annie is lured into the family business, private investigation firm, by her supposed to be retired grandfather Leroy, despite the rest of the clan's misgivings. When a waitress at the cafe goes missing, Annie and Leroy begin an investigation that leads them down rural roads and haunted byways to noxious smelling oil fields and to the glowing neon of local honky tonks. As Annie works to uncover the truth, she finds herself identifying with the victim in increasing, unsettling ways and realizes she must confront her own past, failed romances, a disturbing experience she'd rather forget, and the trick mirror of nostalgia itself, if she wants to survive this homecoming. I am very intrigued by this novel. Um, yeah, very intrigued by this novel. Okay, so I forgot two that belong in the modern PI series. I have read extensively in both of these series. Um, I could have included the Stephanie Plum series by Janet Ivanovich, but that is less PI and more Bell's Bond retrieval, so I didn't include it. But I am going to include the Kinsey Milhone series by Sue Grafton. These are all easy to put in order. The first is A for Alphabet, and I pulled T for Trespass, which I believe is where I'm at in this series. Sue has since passed away. I believe it was finished by, I want to say one of her children, but I am not sure. Don't quote me on that. This one was published in 2007. I have loved every one of these books. They are funny. They are relatable. She is someone you would, instantly be friends with. Kinsey Milhone is. Her cats, all of it is just funny. I love these books so much. And they literally, the first is A for Alibi, and then B for Burglar, and C for Corpse. So you get the gist of the series. They're fantastic. I cannot say enough good things about this series. They're less intense than the series I'm going to talk about next, but they are fabulous look, especially the much earlier ones, of what California looked like before it became the nanny state disaster it currently is. And yeah, go pick up, a Sue Grafton if you never have. Okay, the next series is much more noir than the Kinsey Milhone series, and I will say in this series there is swearing. This is roughly where I'm at in this series, and I say roughly because, quite frankly, I don't know where I'm at this series. But this is Deadland by Sarah Petrovsky. This is a V.I. Warshawski novel. She is a female PI in Chicago. And these are gritty. I'll read you the description. Chicago's legendary detective, V.I. Warshawski, knows her city's rotten underbelly well enough to steer clear of it. But when her goddaughter drags her into a fight over parkland use, Vi uncovers secrets that dangerous people will do anything to protect. She's pushed to the edge. Chicago may be a city of broad shoulders, but its political law is pay to play. Money changes hands in the middle of the night, and by morning, buildings and parks are replaced by billion-dollar projects. Chicago PI V.I. Warshawski stumbles up against one of these clandestine deals when her impetuous goddaughter, Bernie Fauchard, wants to rescue Lydia Zamir, a famed singer-songwriter now living on the streets. All Vi wants is to keep Bernie from beating up Lydia's self-appointed protector, a mysterious man named Coop. However, when the computer geek Bernie is dating when the computer geek Bernie is dating that is a very convoluted sentence. However, when the computer geek Bernie is murdered in the park, Vi knows she's up against opponents whose strategy is simple: bulldoze or kill any obstacle in the way. Questions pile up almost as fast as the dead bodies. When Vi tries to answer them, she finds a terrifying conspiracy stretching from Chicago's lakefront to a cover-up in the dark chapters of America's history, meddling in South American politics. Before she finds answers, Vi comes close to the breaking point and the realization that people who pay to play take no prisoners. This is by far the longest library book, by the way. It's just over 400 pages. I love these books. Like I said, they are on the grittier side. I recall there being some language. However, they are tightly constructed. They are tightly written, twisty, turny novels that will keep you on the edge of your seat. And I need to dive back in. So this has been a great impetus to do that. As I'll go sliding on the floor. But I am very much looking forward to PI July. Okay, apparently I need more caffeine. And I will definitely be participating fully next year. I will try to get some of this in this year, but I am again just completely in love with, books from the past, characters from the past that I have been ignoring and I want to return to. So I'm going to do that. One other thing, unrelated. Sometimes when you browse the library shelves, just randomly, you find novels that you A, didn't know existed, B, written by an author you trust, and C, you cannot wait to dive into. And for me, that would be Double Play by Robert B. Parker. Not a Spencer novel. Doesn't fit the category, but it's about baseball. And I think this is a PI novel, but I'm not sure, so I didn't include it. This was published in 2024, and I will read you the flap. It is 1947, the year Jackie Robinson breaks Major League Baseball's color barrier by playing for the Brooklyn Dodgers and changes the world. This is the story of that season, as told through the eyes of a difficult, brooding, and wounded man named Joseph Burke, a veteran of World War II and a survivor of Guadalcanal. Burke is hired by Brooklyn Dodgers manager Branch Rickey to guard Robinson. While Burke shadows Robinson, a man of tremendous strength and character, suddenly thrust in the media spotlight, the bodyguard must also face some hard truths of his own in a world where the wrong associations can prove fatal. A brilliant novel about a very real man, Double Play is a triumph. Ingeniously crafted, rich with period detail, and resounding with the themes familiar to Parker's readers: honor, duty, responsibility, and Redemption. I cannot wait. It is in library format, not very long. Again, under 300 pages. It is 288 pages. Did not know this existed. I, as you know, love baseball. This is probably sneaking onto my July TBR. So, okay. That are my brief foray into recommendations for PI July. I hope, even if you don't have room on your July TBR this year, keep it in mind for next year. Private eye fiction is so underrated these days, and it's just fabulous. I cannot wait. I literally cannot wait. Have you read any of these? Are you interested? Let me know in the comments down below. Like and subscribe, and I will see you here next time at the Protagonist Pub.